My name is Margaret Collins. I am 68 years old, a widow, and the woman who built a consulting firm from nothing but late nights and stubborn grit. I thought the hardest battles of my life were long behind me until the evening my own family turned against me. We were sitting at a small Italian restaurant on a quiet Thursday night. The smell of garlic and rosemary hung in the air, the clink of cutlery filling the silence between us. My son Daniel avoided my eyes, his fork tracing circles in his pasta. Across from me, his wife Vanessa slid a thick folder across the table. Her voice was calm, almost sweet, but every word carried a blade. "You're not well anymore, Margaret. The court will see that soon enough. Sign this now and we can handle the company before you embarrass yourself." I picked up the pen. My hand trembled, not from weakness, but from anger disguised as calm. I signed every page, then looked up at them with a smile that chilled even me. "Congratulations," I whispered. "You've just inherited a $3 million nightmare." The morning after that dinner, my laptop lit up with a subject line that made my stomach tighten: IRS Notice of Examination. The letters glared at me in bold, unforgiving black. I read the message twice, steadying my breath. 2 minutes later, another email arrived, this time from a law firm I knew too well. Harlan Systems had filed a claim for damages, $2.7 million. My hands didn't shake. I set the coffee cup on its saucer and let the silence of the house steady me. This was no accident. This was the avalanche I had expected the moment I signed those papers. By 8 o'clock, I walked into the office. The elevator mirror showed a woman with lines carved by years of persistence, not weakness. In reception, Denise rose from her chair, panic flickering in her eyes. "Miss Collins, they're waiting for you." I nodded, kept my pace calm, and pushed open my office door. Daniel was already there, sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened as if dishevelment proved urgency. He held the complaint in both hands. "Mom, this is overblown. We'll get a continuance. Work the bank, buy time." "Buy it with what?" I asked. He blinked. "The credit line?" "Frozen," I cut in. "It will be once the bank smells trouble. You think they'll lend against uncertainty?" He swallowed. The boy who once asked me how to keep a firefly alive now looked like a man scrambling for excuses. Love pressed heavy in my chest, but love wouldn't fix a balance sheet. Vanessa swept in behind him, tablet clutched like a shield. "I've spoken to PR. We'll call it a legacy systems issue. Assure staff it's routine. Keep things light, upbeat." "Before or after payroll bounces?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "You're dramatizing." "No," I said softly. "I am being precise." At 9, the call I expected came from the bank. A cheerful voice delivered the blow. The line of credit was placed under review. All further draws suspended. I thanked him, requested written confirmation, and hung up without protest. Panic wastes energy. Clarity is sharper. Marcia, our controller, appeared in the doorway, pale as paper. "We can cover payroll Friday if we drain operating cash. After that," her voice faltered. "Do it," I told her. "Payroll and health benefits only. Nothing else leaves this account." She nodded, relief mixed with fear, and backed out. Daniel dragged a hand through his hair. "Mom, we need a plan. Something concrete. I'll talk to the bank again. Maybe Harlan. Maybe we will not beg," I said. "We will hire counsel, not charlatans. We will face staff with the truth, not spin. That is the plan." Vanessa let out a brittle laugh. "Truth doesn't pay bills. You signed over control. Margaret, this is our company now." I met her gaze. "I signed papers. Control is something different." The words hung there. Even Daniel looked at me as if hearing a language he didn't understand. I rose and opened the door wider. Staff had gathered, drawn by whispers of disaster. Their eyes searched mine for permission to hope. I stood tall, voice steady. "We are under audit. We face a lawsuit. The bank has pulled our line. We will pay you Friday and we will protect your benefits. Beyond that, each of you must decide what's right for your families. No shame if you walk, no lies if you stay." Silence, then a low murmur. They knew me. They trusted that I didn't deal in illusions. Some eyes hardened with loyalty, others with resignation. Both were honest. That mattered. When the door closed, Daniel's shoulders sagged. That sounded like surrender. "No," I told him. It was choice. Vanessa's smile was thin, sharp. "You're not the only one who can play chess." "Then watch the board carefully," I said. "The queen isn't the only piece that matters." The office quieted as afternoon stretched on. Outside, clouds gathered over the river, heavy and gray. I gathered a slim folder from my drawer, one I had prepared months earlier, its edges worn from anticipation. Tomorrow I would meet Harlan face to face. Tonight, I would make the calls that mattered. The storm had broken, but storms, I knew, could be navigated if you didn't lose your compass. The next morning, I unlocked the front door of a small brick office across town. The sign above still read, "For lease," but in my hand was a key I had kept ready for months. Some storms you see on the horizon long before the thunder arrives. Inside, the space smelled of paint and dust. The windows faced east, spilling light across bare desks. I set down a banker's box, opened it, and placed a single framed photo of my late husband on the shelf. He had believed in the company before it was more than a kitchen table and a second-hand phone. I whispered to him, though the room was empty. We start again. By noon, 7 of my 12 senior staff had arrived one by one, carrying laptops, manila folders, and looks that mixed loyalty with fear. Denise came last, dropping her purse on the floor with a thud. "You didn't think I'd stay over there, did you?" she said, tears glinting but her smile firm. I hugged her longer than I meant to. Word spread quickly. Clients called my cell, not the old office line. They wanted to know if I was still at the helm. When I answered yes, they sighed with relief. Contracts weren't with a building, they were with me. By evening, more than half our recurring revenue had agreed to transfer. That night, I sat at a folding chair, staring at the glow of my laptop. The numbers told one story. Survival was possible. My heart told another. I was severing ties not just with a company, but with my own son. Daniel hadn't called all day. Vanessa sent a single email, cold as marble. "Enjoy your little rebellion. We'll see who lasts." I leaned back, letting exhaustion wash over me. Memories intruded. Daniel as a boy, his hand small in mine as we crossed busy streets. I remembered the way he had once begged me to slow down at work so I'd be home for dinner. Somewhere along the years, ambition had replaced wonder in his eyes. I wondered if I had taught him that hunger by accident. The following morning, he showed up at the new office, unshaven, tie crooked. He looked older than 34, his shoulders slumped. "Mom, this is chaos," he said. "Vanessa is furious. Half the staff walked. Clients are defecting. Do you realize what you've done?" "Yes," I answered quietly. "I've given people a choice." He rubbed his face, pacing the room. "She says you'll burn yourself out, that you're clinging to something you should let go. Maybe she's right." I gestured at the sunlight falling across the desks, at the people typing steadily, answering phones, beginning again. "Does this look like letting go?" His mouth opened, then closed. For a moment, the boy returned, the boy who wanted to believe in me. But then the weight of his marriage, his pride, pressed the softness away. He shook his head and left without another word. After he was gone, Denise touched my shoulder. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, though my throat tightened. Watching my own child choose another allegiance was a wound I had prepared for, yet still it cut deep. Love and betrayal live in the same house. That afternoon, I drafted our new mission statement, not grand, not flowery, just a promise that truth and diligence would guide us. No shortcuts, no empty assurances. When the last employee signed their name beneath mine, I felt the first breath of freedom. The old company might still exist on paper, but it was hollow now, like a house abandoned after a fire. The real work, the soul of it, had crossed with me, and though I carried grief for Daniel, I also carried resolve. Storms strip away the weak branches. What remained, I would rebuild stronger. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at Harlan Systems headquarters 15 minutes early. The lobby smelled of polished marble and ambition, the kind of place designed to remind visitors who held the power. But I knew better. Power shifted to whoever stayed calm when everyone else was drowning. Mr. Harlan greeted me in a glass-walled conference room high above the city. He was a tall man, silver hair, reputation for crushing vendors without flinching. His legal team flanked him, their binders stacked like barricades. "You've read the complaint," he said without small talk. His tone was cold, professional. "You cost us millions in delays. We'll recover damages in court." I slid a folder across the table. "You'll find the timeline warnings highlighted, each one sent to your directors, each ignored. I told your people the system couldn't be implemented in 2 quarters. You insisted on it anyway. These emails prove it." He didn't touch the folder. "Even if you're right, litigation gives me leverage. Why should I walk away?" "Because leverage doesn't fix your problem," I said. "Your operations are bleeding. You can win a judgment in 2 years, or you can stabilize in 6 months." His lawyers shifted in their seats. One whispered something about risk mitigation. Harlan held up a hand to silence them. His eyes stayed on me. "What are you proposing?" I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Withdraw the lawsuit, drop the claim, bring me in under my new company, MC Advisory Group. For 6 months, free of charge, I'll rebuild the rollout schedule, fix what's salvageable, and prove I was right from the start. At the end, if you're satisfied, we negotiate a fair contract. If not, we walk away clean." Harlan studied me, expression unreadable. The city stretched behind him, cranes swinging above half-finished towers. Finally, he picked up the folder, flipped through the highlighted pages. His jaw tightened at the evidence of warnings his own team had buried. "You're asking me to trust you," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm asking you to trust results. You know my record. My clients follow me for a reason. You can waste time punishing me, or you can let me save you." The silence stretched long enough for me to hear my pulse. Then he closed the folder, leaned back in his chair, and exhaled through his nose. "6 months," he said. "If you fail, I'll come after you twice as hard." "Fair," I answered. He extended his hand. I shook it, feeling the weight of a bargain struck not in friendship but in necessity. As I walked out of the building, I passed Daniel in the lobby. He must have followed me here, or Vanessa sent him. He looked pale, shoulders tight. "What did you do?" he asked. "I gave him a choice," I said. "The same one I gave you." He didn't reply. The elevator doors closed between us, reflecting his face back at me, a son torn between loyalty to his wife and the knowledge of what I had just pulled off. Outside, the air smelled like rain, heavy and clean. For the first time since that dinner, I felt momentum tilt in my favor. The lawsuit was gone, the future uncertain, but mine to shape. One battle had ended, but I knew another was already waiting. It didn't take long for Vanessa to strike back. Success has a way of exposing jealousy, like cracks in dry earth. A week after Harlan withdrew his lawsuit and agreed to my 6-month arrangement, I returned to the new office to find 2 uniformed officers waiting in reception. "Margaret Collins?" one asked. "Yes. You're under investigation for financial exploitation of elders and misappropriation of company funds. We need you to come with us." The words rang hollow at first. Elders? I was the elder. Still, the weight of their authority pressed against me. My staff stared, frozen. Denise rose halfway from her chair, eyes wide, but I shook my head gently. Resistance would only feed Vanessa's story. The station was gray, all tile and buzzing lights. A detective with tired eyes slid a stack of papers across the table. "Your daughter-in-law alleges you forged signatures, diverted funds, and manipulated records. She says you're no longer competent to manage your affairs." I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. "She's clever," I said instead. "But clever isn't the same as truthful." "You'll have a chance to prove that," he replied. "For now, you're scheduled for a competency hearing." Hours later, my attorney, a tax litigator named Carlson I'd known for decades, secured my release on bail. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited, questions flying. "Mrs. Collins, did you steal from your own company? Are you facing dementia?" I walked past them, jaw tight, each flashbulb a small explosion of humiliation. That night, sleep refused to come. I sat at my kitchen table, listening to the refrigerator hum, staring at the folder I had kept hidden for months. Inside were 6 months of recordings, every conversation, every whisper of manipulation. I lived in a one-party consent state, and I had pressed record the night Vanessa first suggested I was slipping. Each file was a lifeline, proof that my mind was intact and hers was corrupted by greed. At the hearing 2 days later, Vanessa arrived in a cream-colored suit, hair immaculate, voice dripping with false concern. "We only want what's best for Margaret," she told the judge. "She's confused. She makes rash decisions. She gave away contracts, jeopardized our future. We need guardianship to protect her from herself." Daniel sat beside her, pale, avoiding my eyes. My heart clenched at the sight of him shackled to her words. He didn't speak. She didn't let him. When my turn came, Carlson stood. "Your Honor, before any assessment of competency, we request to introduce audio evidence." The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched low, nodded. "Proceed." Carlson clicked a button. The courtroom filled with Vanessa's voice, sharp and unmistakable. "If she doesn't sign, we'll file for guardianship. The court will declare her incompetent. We'll take the company whether she likes it or not." Gasps rippled through the room. Daniel's head dropped into his hands. Vanessa's smile faltered, then vanished altogether. Carlson played another clip, then another. Payroll can wait, optics matter more. And finally, the one that sealed her fate. "She's old. She won't last. We deserve what she built." When the last recording ended, silence hung heavy. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Collins, do you have anything to say?" I stood, voice steady though my chest burned. "I may be old, I may be tired, but I am not incompetent. I built my company on truth and persistence. What you just heard was not care for me. It was theft dressed as guardianship." The judge's gaze swept the room. "This hearing is adjourned. The petition for guardianship is denied. Further investigation will be directed toward Mrs. Collins's accusers." The gavel struck. The sound echoed like thunder, breaking a storm. Outside, Reporters swarmed again, but this time the questions had changed. "Mrs. Collins, did your daughter-in-law try to steal your company? Will you press charges?" I said nothing. Let them speculate. Truth has its own momentum. That evening, Daniel appeared at my door, soaked from the rain, shoulders sagging. His eyes were red. His voice cracked. "Mom, I didn't know. I thought she just wanted to protect us. I didn't know she recorded." I stopped him with a raised hand. "You knew enough to question. You chose not to." He bowed his head. "I'm sorry." The apology was raw, but incomplete. He wasn't ready to break free yet, not fully. I saw it in the way he still defended her with silence. Still, a crack had formed. That was enough for now. Later, alone again. I poured a glass of wine and stood at the window, watching the storm taper into drizzle. The city lights blurred on the wet streets. I thought of the staff who had stood frozen as I was escorted away, the clients who trusted me with their livelihoods, the memory of my husband urging me never to surrender. And I thought of Vanessa, already plotting her escape, already imagining ways to twist the story back in her favor. But now the world had heard her words, not mine, and words, once spoken aloud, cannot be erased. Vanessa ran before the ink on the court order was dry. She drained the joint account, packed 2 suitcases, and vanished with a one-way ticket to Europe. The house she shared with Daniel stood hollow, curtains drawn, her perfume lingering only in the closets she left half empty. Daniel called me the next evening. His voice was hoarse, raw from shouting into a void that no longer answered. "She left me. Mom, she took everything. I don't even have gas money to get out of this parking lot." Behind him, rain hammered the roof of his car, a relentless drumming that made him sound smaller than I remembered. For a long moment, I said nothing. This was the son who once joined her in trying to strip me of my dignity. Now he sat alone, abandoned, shivering in his own mistakes. "Come home," I told him finally, "but not as a victim. If you want my help, you tell the truth. To me, to the investigators, to yourself." His silence was heavy, but different this time. Not defiance, but surrender. "I will," he whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes." That night, when I opened my door, he stood dripping on the porch. He looked like the boy I once tucked in with stories about honesty and grit. I stepped aside to let him in, but my eyes reminded him, forgiveness would not come cheap. The trial began 6 months later in a packed courtroom. By then, investigators had followed the trail Vanessa left scattered across 2 continents, shell accounts, falsified invoices, withdrawals she thought hidden behind foreign banks. They brought it all back in boxes, every page carrying her signature of arrogance. Daniel took the stand first. His voice shook, but he spoke clearly, admitting how he had been blinded by loyalty and fear. He told the jury about the dinner, the pressure, the folder she slid across the table. His words weren't rehearsed, they were raw, and for the first time in years, they belonged to the man I had raised. When it was my turn, I said little. The recording spoke louder than I ever could. One final clip echoed through the room, Vanessa's voice, sharp with disdain. "She's old. She won't last. We deserve what she built." The jury didn't look at me then. They looked at her. The verdict came swift, guilty on charges of fraud, elder abuse, and embezzlement. 15 years in federal prison. As the bailiff led her away, Vanessa turned once, eyes burning with fury, but the fire no longer reached me. Justice had already done its work. In the months that followed, MC Advisory Group grew, clients returned, new staff joined, and the office filled with a hum of steady purpose. Daniel worked quietly in compliance. No shortcuts, no privileges. At night, he attended counseling, slowly rebuilding the man he wanted to be. I gave him tasks, not absolution, redemption, like business, had to be earned. One autumn evening, we stood together by the river. The water moved slow, copper with sunset. Daniel slipped a worn leather briefcase into my hands, the one that once belonged to his father. "I found this in storage," he said. "I think it belongs with you." I traced the scratches along its edges, the faint smell of tobacco still clinging to the handle. For the first time in years, my chest loosened. I placed a hand on my son's shoulder. "Remember this, Daniel," I told him softly. "Living well is the sweetest revenge." The river carried my words away, but their weight stayed with us both. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.